The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And tonight on the Rita Cosby Show, we will continue talking about Eric Swalwell and his reprehensible behavior, which very well may end up being criminal. I bet you the floodgates are going to open up. There is no doubt, I believe, against him. And they already are, but there's going to be many more. Meantime, listen to these students at Swarthmore College. It is in Pennsylvania. And if this isn't frightening, they're on American soil and they're chanting, "Iran, you make us proud." Listen to this one.
Take another soldier out! Take another soldier out! Iran, you make us proud! Iran, you make us proud! Take another soldier out! Take another soldier out! Hezbollah, you make us proud! Hezbollah, you make us proud! Take another soldier out! Take another...
And as you're hearing those crazy chants, people are hanging around with Hassan Piker. That includes Mahmoud, of course, Mahmoud Khalil, but also Zoran Mandani and also El Sayed. Remember, that is the guy who is running for Senate in Michigan. And this is the famous YouTuber who seems to say the craziest, most reprehensible things. Like, remember, he said America deserves 9/11. And then just a few days ago, he blamed Republicans for being the biggest threat to America. Get this.
I hate Republicans. I oppose them. I say that all the time. I think that the Republicans are far more damaging. The biggest terrorists, the biggest domestic terrorists in this country, the biggest terrorist internationally is the Republican Party. And not only that, but it's just like I want to fight against the growing fascist movement in this country.
The growing fascist movement in this country. That's what he believes is the biggest threat to America. And then there's the New York Times columnist, Thomas Friedman, well-known guy, came forward. And listen to this. He says that he's torn because he, of course, doesn't like the Iranian mullahs, the terrorist regime. But he also said, I can't stand Netanyahu and I can't stand Trump. So he's torn with allegiances. How could that be? That sounds completely un-American to me. Listen to this from Thomas Friedman. This is cut 28. Take a listen.
I find myself, Michael, in a situation where I really want to see Iran defeated militarily, because this regime is a terrible regime for its people in the region, and nothing would improve the region more than the replacement of this regime with a regime in Iran that was focused on enabling its people to realize their full potential and integrating peacefully with other countries and stop occupying Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. So I'm all for that. The problem is I really don't want to see Bibi Netanyahu or Donald Trump politically strengthened by this war, because they are two awful human beings. They're both engaged in anti-democratic projects in their own countries. They're both alleged crooks. They are terrible, terrible people doing terrible things to America's standing in the world and Israel's standing in the world. And so I really find myself torn. I want to see Iran militarily defeated, but I do not want to see these two terrible people strengthened.
How frightening is that he's torn? A lot of people are talking about that on social media, saying that sounds very un-American. That's the nicest thing I can say. He's torn because he's not sure. He doesn't want to root for Trump, or he doesn't want to root for Netanyahu, but he doesn't like the mullahs. So he's torn between the two. I'm not torn. I clearly want the mullahs of Iran that have butchered 45,000 of their own people. I want them to lose. I'm not torn. And I would say the same thing if Obama was president or Joe Biden was president. Neither one of them had the guts to do it, but I would have said bravo to them had they had the guts to do it. And speaking of Trump derangement syndrome, listen to James Carville. He really has lost his mind. Listen to this. He doesn't just want, he said he doesn't want him to die. He wants Trump to suffer. I mean, this is nuts.
I want to be clear on this. I do not want that man to die. I want to watch him suffer. And I can't watch a dead person suffer. So I want him to be fully cognizant come November. So when people tell him.
How disgusting is that? How disgusting. Has James Carville totally lost his mind? He didn't used to be so loony. He is like totally loony, and he is absorbed with Trump derangement syndrome. And he's referring to, he wants him to be around during the midterms because he thinks the Democrats are going to win big, and he wants him to be fully aware of what's going on. I mean, this is but crazy to say, I don't want to see him die. I want something more than that. I mean, this is just horrible, despicable, disgusting behavior. By the way, there's a report out tonight that allegations about Eric Swalwell, speaking of disgusting, have been known since about 2013, that it was almost an open secret, if you will. And you're hearing even members of the media saying that they knew that he was crossing the line with women. Unclear how much they knew. But still, the fact that even these rumors were swirling. And yet here it is. We're in 2026, guys. 13 years. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Bo in South Carolina. Line 1. Go ahead, Bo.
Hi, Rita. Yes, Swalwell is just a deplorable and disgusting human being. I mean, if there's 8 or 9 women coming forward, I mean, they certainly need to be listened to and heard. Just like, if he keeps working at it, he could catch up to Donnie, who's got 25 or 30 credible accusations against him. How come you don't talk about all those? Who are you
referring to? Who are you talking about, Donnie? Who are you talking about?
You know who I'm talking about. Your cult leader.
I'm not sure who you're talking about because I'm a registered independent, so you might be a little surprised about that, Bo. But Bo, first of all, actually, it sounds like he's your cult obsession, but that's a whole other matter. That's a whole other matter. It sounds like you need a little bit of work there, Bo. But first of all, Bo, since we're talking about Eric Swalwell, you're okay with the Swalwell, I guess. And in these particular cases, I don't agree with anybody being sexually assaulted. If there's sufficient evidence, then that's a whole other story. I will tell you with the E. Jean Carroll case, and every case is different. In that case, I found that one tough to believe because she claims it happened in a department store, in a busy department store in the middle of the day, in a dressing room in a busy department store. Not that it couldn't have happened, but it seemed a little more inconceivable. That's my opinion. But I believe that anybody, whether it's Republican or Democrat, and next time you should kind of be honest when you make a call. That's a better way to handle things than trying to lie and cheat and do all this other stuff. But good luck with your life, Bo. Good luck. Let's go to Joaquin in Pennsylvania, line 2. Joaquin, go ahead.
Rita. Thank you, Rita. Bo is the typical Democrat. He's a liar, just like the rest of them, right?
Yeah, he's like, I want to talk about this because I'm too scared to say it. By the way, and all of you guys know this, I welcome all opinions. Like, I don't mind Bo calling in. Just be a man and say who you are. Don't be a little Chicken Little and pretend like you're something you're not. So go ahead, Joaquin.
Yes, exactly. And actually, now you got on this topic about these protests, but I do want to say one thing. These allegations against Swalwell, the left has done their best to weaponize all these sexual allegations against their opposition, And so it's interesting how they actually seem to be the ones who are guilty of the exact same things that they tried to put on President Trump and Kavanaugh and others. So, and it's really a terrible thing what this guy Swalwell allegedly has done. It's
reprehensible, and especially this new allegation is so horrible. And you heard, you just brought up the Bo thing because it is sort of the typical, look at these other things. Look at that. When he made a comment to, I was waiting for him to say the whole Billy Bush thing. When he made a comment that you do this, that comment that he said verbally one time, that equates what this woman is alleging. It does not. I mean, that's why this is ridiculous. And I want to play Joaquin also. Let me play this again because this to me is so troubling. What we heard from the woman today. This is cut number 10. And this is Lana Drews because this is very serious, reprehensible behavior. And now we're seeing from multiple people, there clearly seems to be a pattern here. And they're all coming forward. And I bet you there's going to be a lot more. And that's why it makes it a lot different, Bo. than what you said, Chicken Little Bo. Here you go. Here is Lana Drews.
He raped me, and he choked me. And while he was choking me, I lost consciousness. And I thought I died. I did not consent to any sexual activity. Although I did not undergo a rape kit at the time, I disclosed the assault to the people closest to me. I also recorded these events in my handwritten calendar. The assault and its impact were later documented during my therapy sessions at a sexual assault center in Connecticut. It had a profound impact on my mental health. I self-medicated in an unhealthy way. I did not want to live anymore. I cried all the time for years. At the time, I was in a dating relationship with a boyfriend I was fully committed to. I've never cheated in my life, and I would never have engaged in a consensual sexual encounter with Eric Swalwell.
And then here's a little more, Joaquin. Take a listen.
In 2018, while I was living and working as a model in Beverly Hills, and I also owned a fashion software company, I had contact with Eric Swalwell on 3 separate occasions after meeting him socially. He offered me connections to further my software company, and I also had an interest in local politics. He invited me to 2 public events. I knew he was married at the time and that his wife was pregnant. He was my friend. On the 3rd occasion, I believe he drugged my drink.
That's big, serious stuff. Joaquin, your thoughts tonight?
Yeah, that's just beyond comprehension to do something like that. And again, it just goes to show. And then they turn around and they try and put these things, onto Donald Trump and to people on the right. It's just incredible. Hopefully this guy gets nailed, And, we have to stop taking the high road. We have to stop being better than them. I'm going to get to the protesters, if you don't mind. We have to be more vicious than they are because we're on the verge of really losing our country. I think that everybody in this country lives with a false sense of security. Unlike the rest of the world that lives in a lot of misery and war and things in their face, we have this false sense of security and comfort. And so now we have people in this country who are giving aid and comfort to the enemy, basically, and the time is really coming that we really have to be as vicious as possible and start denaturalizing people, deporting people, and really, quite frankly, concentrating on our educational system and getting the message out there as to what the truth of the history is of this country and what this country actually is. And that if we allow it to fall into the hands of people like who are protesting like this, we're going to be the victims of any communist Islamic revolution, that's happened any place else.
I agree. I agree. Good people need to stand up and say this is not acceptable. And these people have no clue. I mean, they have zero clue that imagine if they were protesting in Iran against Iran. I always say this, Joaquin, because it's an important wake-up call. They would last about 5 minutes. I mean, do you think the Iranian regime would allow them on the streets? I feel sorry for them. They'd be slaughtered.
That's right. That's exactly right. And people have to realize that the history of the world is of those who conquer and those who are conquered. And we are just allowing ourselves to be conquered. And, and like you say, this would not be allowed in any of these tyrannical countries, but yet they want to bring that same tyranny here, and they want to embrace it. And they have no idea that these people are just, they've just been so brainwashed by a leftist educational system that has been taken over, and even the media. I'm hoping that we still have enough people on our side to actually try and make things right again, to right the ship that we're on. Otherwise, we're actually going to be in serious trouble in a couple of years.
No, you're right. You are right. And that's why we have to stand up. And the other thing is, too, is if Democrats take over, and it depends which type, but most of the ones we've seen of late have been pretty extreme on one side, and quite extreme. And I'm talking about in terms of the communist views and the open border views and the give everything to illegals, even if they've committed a crime view. All of those. Think about how different America's going to look if they get the House and the Senate. And if they get the White House, it's going to be come one, come all, just like old times. Mayorkas, oh, he's great. We're going to, bow to the temple of Mayorkas. 1-800-848-9222. We'll continue, guys, after the break.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. This is the Rita Cosby Show.
And let's continue with your calls. Let's go to Matt in the Bronx on line 5. Go ahead, Matt. Your thoughts tonight.
All right. So concerning the protesters, this is my stance in general with regard to free speech issues. Political speech, no matter how odious it is, as long as it's not promoting violence and advocating threats, it should be permitted. So I'm not siding with the protesters, but I'm saying that's my stance.
And now let me ask you, Matt, because you're a free speech purist, and listen, I understand. I'm all for free speech, so I am torn when I see them essentially saying, "Iran, you make us proud." That could be considered threatening because they're killing protesters in Iran, and they're an enemy of America and an enemy of the free world. So that's like saying, "Hitler, you make us proud." Sadly, but here's what I think, Matt. I think their faces should be shown, and I think future employers should be aware. And if they want to get out there and they want to say, "Iran, make us proud," well, then maybe it should affect their job choices.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Rita Cosby is on.
And tonight, everybody talking about Eric Swalwell. By the way, you just heard from Matt in the Bronx talking about the protests. What did you guys think of my idea where I said those protesters, remember just like on college campuses, when they were out there shouting those vile things to Jewish students, making them feel threatened? Well, then a lot of their names came out or their faces came out, or when they were arrested, their names came out. And then a lot of people said, well, maybe we don't want to hire them necessarily for prospective law, legal offices, law offices. We don't want to hire them for other different jobs now that we know who these people are. We're rescinding our invitation for them for law school or rescinding job offers. I think that's all fair game. If you're out there and you're saying these horrible, despicable, vile things that are making people feel threatened and uncomfortable, well, then don't hide behind the masks. That was part of the reason, remember, for all those masks. Remember, on all these protests, you still see a lot of these protesters out there with masks. If you're going to go out there and shout these vile things, well, then guess what? There should be some repercussions for shouting those horrible, vile things. So I say, see who you are. If you want to go out there and you want to say these horrible things like we love Iran, you make us proud, well, then let's see your face. And then future employers can decide if you make them proud. Or if they say, maybe we'll have somebody who has a moral compass after all. Well, everybody, speaking of a lack of moral compass, Eric Swalwell certainly takes the cake on that one. There is no doubt. Earlier, we talked to Ari Fleischer, former White House press secretary, And this is what he had to say when we asked him if he believes that the Democratic Party knew all along about Eric Swalwell and his misdeeds.
Well, and you remember this similar happened to Congressman Torricelli in New Jersey, or Senator Torricelli in New Jersey years ago, where he got out just at the filing deadline to escape the corruption charges. Look, here's where what I think about that. I don't know what the Democrats knew or didn't know about his moral behavior with women. What I do know, everybody knew, because Republicans were the ones demanding it. After the revelations came out that he was sleeping with a Chinese spy, Republicans didn't turn a blind eye to it. They said, take him off the Intelligence Committee, and the Democrats protected him. So whether they knew or didn't know about his fooling around with women, they knew that he was a national security threat, and they protected him. And that to me is guilty enough.
Yeah, they definitely did. And one of the main advocates of him, he called her his mentor, was Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi, who knew that he was a national security risk and was having that fling with Fang Fang. Now it makes you wonder what was going on with them. Was there more to the story than just a romantic or cozy relationship there? What else did she get out of Eric Swalwell? Did she have blackmail material on Eric Swalwell? Certainly sounds like there was a lot of material to blackmail there, because it sounds like his wife didn't know much at minimum. And obviously the behavior could be criminal too, based on these new allegations. But Nancy Pelosi was like his mentor, his leader, if you will. And yet she promoted him. Even after all these details came out about Fang Fang, the Chinese spy, she put him on the Intel Committee. She put him on the January 6th committee, because he was her attack dog against Donald Trump and other Republicans. And that's all that mattered to her and other Democrats. That's what I firmly believe. And yet today, Nancy Pelosi was asked, did you know about Eric Swalwell? And she said, oh, no. Listen to this.
Some Republicans and others are saying that Democrats turned kind of a blind eye, that they knew what he was up to or what the allegations were.
That is absolutely positive. And it's true that they may say that, but it is absolutely not true.
You had no idea?
None whatsoever. None whatsoever. I had none whatsoever.
None whatsoever. He just seemed like a wonderful guy, and I didn't really care. I mean, she knew he was with Fang Fang, and then she promoted him. That was a national security risk. That was always stunning to me. That said it all. So that alone was terrible. And obviously these other allegations are absolutely unconscionable. And then there's this guy, Stephen Klubeck is his name. He is apparently a billionaire Democrat donor, and it was his house that Eric Swalwell has been hanging around with. There were reports that he was hanging around with this guy, staying kind of in hiding at his house for the last few days. And then when all these details came out, this guy said not only did he kick Eric Swalwell out, he also said he is leaving the Democratic Party. Listen to this guy.
Did you suspect this at all?
No! I was blown away. Like, blown away. Like, there's no way I would have endorsed him.
Yeah.
It's such a shock. I am no longer a Democrat. I'm now a libertarian Republican, because that's what a blue dog Democrat used to be.
How's your relationship with Eric? Are you guys still friends?
Eric who? Is that clear? I said, pal, you busted the trust. 2, you didn't tell the truth. 3, I'm disappointed and disgusted. Get the out of here.
By the way, he's the most believable so far. He seems genuinely disgusted with him. And that's the behavior, not the F word, but that's the behavior that Nancy Pelosi and these others should have. If they really genuinely are surprised that there's gambling in Las Vegas, and this guy does seem genuine. I don't know him, but he seems like the most convincing of them all. The others are like, well, we didn't really know. I find that hard to believe. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Mike in Poughkeepsie on line 5. Go ahead, Mike. Your thoughts tonight.
Hi, Rita. Thanks for a great program. The last 2 days on the 5 o'clock show and tonight, we're wondering why Nancy Pelosi promoted Swalwell to the intel and the January 6th and never turned him in for what she may have known. But my question is, why would she turn him in over Fang Fang, a Chinese connection, when she had a driver who was possibly hearing her confidential conversations who was also Chinese, and the media made that disappear?
No.
quickly.
I think you're thinking of, I believe you're talking about Dianne Feinstein, if I remember. I think it was Dianne Feinstein. Maybe Pelosi had one too, but Dianne Feinstein's the one who had the driver that was the Chinese driver that was with her for years upon years upon years. But regardless, your point is a good one, Mike. But she was well aware that he was a security risk. And I don't believe there were any allegations with her with the Chinese, but she knew, we all knew it was a fact that he was with this woman who was a Chinese spy. She was a fundraiser for him. She spent a lot of time with him. Now you'll wonder what kind of time she spent. And I'm being dead serious when I say that maybe she had a lot of blackmail material on him too. And yet Pelosi turned a blind eye. And I don't think it was because of the Chinese allegation, because that was Feinstein. But what I do think is he was her, whipping boy, I mean, he was going out there and saying horrible, horrible things about the Republicans. And as long as he was willing to do that and be the person who would say all these horrible, nasty comments, she was okay with that. She was, he was the useful idiot. And it worked for her because she was happy that he was going and saying the most nasty things about Trump and Kavanaugh, and that was okay by her. I mean, she was willing to look the other way about the Chinese spy. And think about, had she kicked him off at that point, maybe some of these other things might not have happened. You don't know. If people had spoken out sooner, and that's why I applaud at least these women for speaking out now, because they seem genuinely wanting to make sure that other victims are not, happening in the future. They're wishing that they had spoken out sooner. You can tell, too, because this is reprehensible, this behavior, Mike. I mean, this goes well beyond, and it makes you wonder what else is out there that we don't know of. Did the Chinese have something on Swalwell? Was there something even more that we haven't even heard of yet? Who knows? But I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. That's my gut. But Mike, great points. Good to hear from you. Let's go to Thomas in New Jersey on line 3. Go ahead, Thomas. Your thoughts tonight.
I'll just give you something quick on Swalwell, and then I'll pivot to the Pope, which I spoke to your screener about. God bless you, Rita. Let's go, Todd Blanche. Here we go. You got a feast full of evidence against Swalwell. We could start with cavorting with the Chinese spy and then go for, the Democratic playbook of how you treat women. You drug them and then you assault them and rape them. They seem to go to the same seminar, Rita. But in regards to the Pope...
And hang on, before you go to the Pope, I want to ask you, because I know you're an attorney, Thomas. There could be potentially some federal crimes here. What if some of these things, first of all, if they cross state lines? What about also if tax dollars were used, campaign funds were used to participate in these activities? Do you see these crimes? How serious are these crimes? First of all, on a state level, obviously very serious. There's a special circumstances, if it turns out the drugging too as well. And then the issue of federal crimes. There could be some federal ones too, if true.
Absolutely, Rita. In his capacity as a congressperson, a congressman, he's violating his oath. He wasn't properly vetted. How did he get in there to begin with? I mean, these are serious allegations. And whatever happened to cavorting with the Chinese spy? How did that get swept under the rug? But that was another one of our long list of non-prosecutions by our Attorney General. The list goes on and on.
Yep, I agree. And that's why there is no way that one for sure Nancy Pelosi knew. There's no doubt. Nancy Pelosi seems to sort of know everything. She's sort of the secret keeper. She's in California. The guy was planning at one point, remember, running for president. He did. and then running for governor, and yet nobody knew these things. I find it inconceivable, Thomas, inconceivable. And she clearly, at minimum, knew about the Chinese spy, and she promoted him after that. In fact, Kevin McCarthy and other people were like, kick him off the Intel committee, kick him off. He's a threat. He's a security risk. And yet, instead of kicking him off, she put him on and promoted him. That says everything, Thomas.
The Democrat Party. They're not the Democrats. They're the Democrats, Rita. And let me give you something on the Pope. He's disappointing me, Rita. I have to tell you, I'm a practicing Catholic. I have no pleasure in saying this, but instead of him taking cheap shots, in the Vatican, he's got the 40-foot wall. You violate their sovereignty, it's a $25,000 fine, possible prison time, and he's taking cheap shots at Trump. We're trying to protect our sovereignty, Pope Leo. Why don't you stand up? Maybe at the Feast of Pentecost, the power of the Holy Spirit. Why don't you say Muhammad was a bad man and Sharia law is an oppressive slavery against women, imprisoning women in burqas and oppressing women is bad, just like Muhammad. Why doesn't he get up and say that and show some courage rather than his political left-wing activist against our great president, Donald Trump? You know, it's so disappointing to me. You know, and I prayed tonight hard, Rita. I really did. And I'll pray for this Pope to be enlightened by the Holy Spirit. He's enlightened by leftism and the Democrat Party.
Well, and one thing that I will say, I was stunned about the Pope, that he has become, it seems like this one, particularly political very quickly. And you know, some of it is the Pope's, you know, it's typical that the Pope would say something like this, especially if you look at his background. I'm not surprised coming from his background that he would say this. But the fact that he didn't come out and condemn Iran, even for the executions of their own people, I do think the Pope could play a valuable role if indeed, you know, he wants peace just overall everywhere. But he seems to be picking and choosing, and that's the problem I have.
And the targeting bombing of Iran, President Trump has saved thousands, maybe million of lives in this surgical prosecution of trying to get. And he gets no credit for that, Pope Leo. We have to be kind to the immigrants. No, we have to maintain our sovereign border, just like you do, Pope Leo. Stop with the political correctness. It's really insulting, and putting abortion, the millions and millions of abortions, on moral equivalence with criminals on death row. It's outrageous. It really is, Rita.
Yeah, he really has gone very, very vocal, and very, very quickly, too. That is for sure. And obviously, I do hate, though, to see the back and forth with the president and the Pope. I wish, hopefully, there'll be a kumbaya for everybody's sake. I hope so at some point. But I do wish the Pope, if he's going to start condemning, and I agree with you, I think President Trump, by his actions, history is going to view President Trump taking this action against Iran very, very favorably and very courageously, which indeed it has been. 1-800-848-9222. Thomas, thank you so much. Everybody, we're going to continue after the break. But first, support our heroes.
The Rita Cosby Show presents Support Our Heroes.
And this is the Tunnel to Towers Foundation Support Our Heroes segment with a very powerful story from Columbia, South Carolina, where World War II veteran Philip Cook, who is now 100 years old, was awarded France's highest military honor as he served as a B-17 gunner who took part in some of the most dangerous bombing missions over Europe. More than 80 years after he flew over occupied France in World War II, veteran Staff Sergeant Philip Cook was presented with the Legion of Honor by the French Consul General. Just to give you a little background about him, he enlisted in the Army Air Forces, which was the precursor to today's Army Air Force, back in June 1943. He had originally tried to be a fighter pilot, but was instead trained as an aerial gunner. And upon receiving this Legion of Honor, this very esteemed award from France, he said, "I never thought what I did in World War II would mean so much, not only for the United States, but for those who had to endure years of enemy occupation." How beautiful that he and so many members of the greatest generation are being honored and appreciated throughout the globe. And everybody, support America's military and first responder heroes. Donate just $11 a month to the incredible Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Be sure to check them out. They do such great work at T2T.org. That's T, the number 2, T.org.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. It's the Rita Cosby Show.
And let's continue with your calls. My prediction, more women are going to come forward, probably a lot more, with allegations against Eric Swalwell. I bet you this is just the tip of the iceberg. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Roberta in Staten Island, line 5. Go ahead, Roberta, your thoughts.
Oh, hi. When I originally heard about this, I heard about this woman staffer that wound up being drunk and got raped, and then apparently she went out with him again. I mean, the whole thing just sounds so fishy. Can you imagine a woman, going out with somebody that's raped and abused her like that? I mean, I just feel like it's a Democrat ploy to get him off the ballot, so a Republican can't win.
Now, by the way, it did sound odd that she went out with him again, but that happens sometimes with people that go through an experience like that. It maybe doesn't make sense to you or I, but it doesn't mean that it didn't happen. But it does sound, a little odd. I agree with you. What I thought was interesting in this one, Roberta, this new one, says she only had 3 sort of meetings with them, and the third one is when this incident happened, and she says she believes she was drugged by him, and then she never saw him again. So does that change your perspective? Because this is another woman saying something pretty similar, and she didn't go back to him again.
Well, also I happened to see her on Laura Ingraham, and it looked like she was reading from a script. So I don't know why she has to read from a script if she knew what happened.
Well, maybe with attorneys and everything else, they're being super careful. But I'm willing. You got to see. They've got to be proven in court. And let's see where this goes. The police are, I'm sure, going to be investigating all these allegations. But I also don't doubt that the Democrats maybe put it out there, true or untrue.
Thanks for listening to The Rita Cosby Show. You can hear The Rita Cosby Show weeknights at 10 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?